So let's dive in. The team will be answering questions via chat as I present. And remember that at the very end of our presentation, we'll have our live Q&A session. So please stick around. All right. Actually, let me zoom in just a bit more. All right. So to the left, and we're going to quickly take a look at our labor types. So for our new users, before you start quoting, please make sure that you set up your labor types for projects. It's important to quote labor appropriately because when your installers and technicians are clocking in and out of tasks or projects, we're going to track that time against these types of labor, right? So how much time did we spend installing versus programming? And then how much did we actually charge to the client for it? It's all going to tie into your job costing, right? So come in and edit your hourly costs, your labor rates by enabling your fulfillment locations. Right, so there's a tab above your labor types here to the left called fulfillment locations. Create them, enable the fulfillment locations here on the labor type, and then pop in your hourly cost and the hourly price. Okay. Then when you're creating an opportunity, there's a drop down to select that fulfillment location, and then we'll adjust your labor rates appropriately. All right, so I'm going to jump around just a little bit. I'm going to find the service tab next and labor types here. Now, service labor types are different than project labor types. As your technicians are completing servicing these labor types here. I offer 3 different service plans, and they all include a maximum of service calls. But if they need an additional service call, see, I have different rates listed here. And then for any of the clients of mine that don't have a service contract, they'll be charged my standard service rate. All right, so different labor types here. It's going to land in my invoice deposit column because I want to make sure I get my money. I want to make sure I get paid. I know when I'm ordering my equipment, when my project has been scheduled, and then once the install has begun, right? And then I have some other stages here for any outstanding change orders, client orientation, and then once the job is actually completed, my final invoice has been paid. All right, feel free to take any of these project stages, guys, and apply them to your own subscriptions. But yes, get in there and map out your task templates are the perfect and easiest way to manage tasks on a project and create some consistency. So if you're doing the same steps for similar projects, right, come up with your own recipe, save it here, and then apply it to your project plan. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit. And if I drill into one of these tasks here, or your field user, add the necessary equipment, and then schedule it. All right. But I'm going to go ahead and find my project plan next. And that's going to be over to the left. It's the plan tab underneath overview. So personally, I like to start on the tasks tab. It's the second tab here in the top left. I like to just do my brain dump and then start scheduling. I've already applied my task template here, but if you're starting from scratch, you can either apply one by clicking on this button up in the top right corner, and it's going to give me a list of my task templates. Right? Or you can start building one from scratch right here, and then just hit this tiny little arrow over to the right of the apply task template button, and then just save as a task template. So you can start back in settings, or you can create your task templates here in an actual project. Okay. I've organized my tasks or my task groups here by locations in this project, but you guys can do this by phases, systems, or just keep it super simple and just create a single task group. but let's go ahead and take a look at one of my tasks. So here I have my TV and camera installation task in my patio area. I'm going to go ahead and assign myself as a resource. Okay. And I'm going to drill into this task here too to see more details. Right, so there's my assigned resource, myself. I can add a description if I want. And then I have some checklist items here that I don't want to forget for myself, and I also don't want my technicians to forget to do. Okay, but more importantly, at the very bottom, there's a place to add items from my bill of materials. All right, so I'm actually going to filter by locations here. I only want to see my items in my patio. And let's go ahead and add my TVs, mounts, and those cameras. Boom. And we finished adding, and there they are. All right. Up at the very top, there's also some tabs for files, right? I can browse out to my project files, and I can add, maybe I want to add my proposal PDF just in case Chris wanted to take a second look when I get on site, right? This is pulling over from the opportunity. I can also add any project drawings. I created a small plan, again, back in that opportunity that's pulling over here. And then on the last tab here, the activity tab is where I can leave notes and comments, and I can also mention other users in my software, right, or in my subscription. Let's just say I'll let you know when I'm there. Right, so now that I've created this comment and I've mentioned Dave, he's going to get an email notification and a notification in the software. All right, so I think we look good here. We've added all of our details for our installer. And then over to the right, we're going to go ahead and schedule it. But notice there's also a due date here. So just because you have a due date doesn't necessarily mean that you schedule it, right? I want this installation to be done by July 4th, but I'm actually going to schedule it for tonight. All right, we're working late tonight. Let's go ahead and schedule it from 5:30 to 6:30. I won't stay too late. There I can see that my task has been assigned. Here's my resource, and I'm going to go ahead and create my event. So now it's truly been scheduled. All right, and so now that I scheduled this task, I got an email notification, and I'm also going to get a notification in the software. All right, there it is. And now let's go ahead and switch over to our field user view. So all Office users also have a field user view. Up in the top right corner, if you hover over your icon, you get the option here underneath my profile. And let's go ahead and make this switch. Okay, so now we're here in our field user view. We landed here on our dashboard, and here's that same task that I just scheduled for myself. All right, so we made it to 2300 Peachtree. I'm going to go ahead and clock into my project. I'm going to select my project task. And again, this is why labor types are so important, because now I'm going to select which labor type I'm actually using on this project. We're doing installation, and then I'm going to go ahead and clock in. All right. So then I'm going to click into my task here to see my details. Here are my site details. There I am. Here's my description, and then here's my checklist. So I'm going to start to check these items off. We mounted the bracket and the TV, ran some cables, right? And everything that's happening here is happening in real time in the Office user view, which is really nice. So back in the office, they know exactly what's happening on site. Okay. And then down below, here are those same items. I'm going to go ahead and update them to install by just clicking on the status here. All right, this is actually an inventory item, right? So I actually have one of these in stock. I'm going to go ahead and check this out. And let's install this mount as well. Okay. Again, I can check out the files here, my drawings, and leave notes and comments for my team members here. All right. Oh, and Dave commented back. Let's go ahead. Done with the job. All right, so it's nice to do some collaborating with your team here. Okay, and then there's also this camera icon, so you guys can snap images if you're on your phone or iPad or tablet, and then upload them to the task as well. All right, guys, so we've done the work, right? So I'm gonna mark this task as completed. And I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but as I started to move along throughout the task, updating the checklist and updating my item statuses, we moved from new to in progress, right? But now that I'm done, I'm gonna go ahead and mark it as completed. And let's go ahead and clock out from the project. Right, 2 minutes is sad. I'm gonna add an hour to that, right? And then let's go ahead and clock out. Okay. And then you guys can also take a look at all of your time entries here on the hours tab at the very bottom, right? So I can see all of my time entries across projects and service calls. I can manually add a time entry if I want to. Let's say I just did some admin work today and I wanted to clock some time, I can do that. I also don't need to have a task to clock in and out of a project. You can kind of bypass that by just selecting your project here and then adding the hours worked. So that's just another option. All right, but let's switch back to our Office user view. I'm going to hit our icon up in the top right, and let's make the switch. Okay, and let's find the Projects tab again, and 2300 Peachtree. So before we take a look at the completed task, I want to call out the job status section at the bottom of the page. All right, there's a toggle in the bottom right corner where you can switch to see the different labor types and how much time you've spent doing what, right? So here I have my installation and my programming labor types, and I can see that I've completed about 2 hours of installation, and we've been programming for about 1.5 here. And once if I'm over budget, this bar is actually going to turn red, which is also kind of nice, right? And you can see your unscheduled hours, what you've scheduled, and a total of what's been completed. One of my favorite features here on the overview page. And you can also drill down even deeper by clicking on the job costing tab. Okay, but let's go back into the project plan. I'm going to hit that button again underneath overview. We're going to find the tasks tab here. And I can see that this task has been completed. All right, if I drill into it, I see that my checklist has been checked off and all of my items have been installed. And let's find the time tracking tab. So there's this third tab here. Okay, so here's a list of my time entries, including the one that we just logged, right? And of course, you can filter by date, resource, phase, and you can also export this information to a CSV file. Now, these time entries are specific to this project, but there is a time entries tab in the main navigation that allows you to track time entries across all projects and service calls, which is a good segue into service, which is where we're headed next. All right, and here we are on our service tab. So service calls are going to help you guys build long-term relationships with your customers beyond the initial install and create ongoing revenue to keep a steady cash flow between projects. And as I mentioned before, it's a great way to get customers on a service plan or a monitoring agreement instead of paying for single instances and dealing with long wait times and all that jazz. It also gives your techs the perfect opportunity to recommend upgrades or add-ons when on site. So let's schedule a service call together. I'm going to find this green button over to the right. And let's look for a client. So Sal Manella called in. And his issue is that is he's saying that his TV is coming on, but he's not getting a picture. All right. And then let's go ahead and pop in a service reason. We'll call it a technical malfunction. Okay, if Sal did have a project, I could tie him or associate him to that project. Same thing for a service contract, but he's not on a service contract. So we're going to go ahead and charge him our standard service fee. All right, let's go ahead and create this. And now we've landed in our service call details. So here's that same issue that we just reported. Over to the right, above that box, there is this tiny green hyperlink here to view our site notes. And we can actually log site notes here. So maybe the gate code is 1177. All right, and when I save this, now the next time that I create a service call for Sal, these site notes are going to pull over. Okay, let's change the priority. I like Sal. We're going to go ahead and mark it as high. Okay, and then let's actually add some notes here to the checklist. So we have another checklist here for service calls, similar to the tasks, right? We're gonna look for visible damage. We're gonna check for connections, and we're gonna check the HDMI extender, and then we're gonna do some testing. Okay, just some things we don't want to forget to do. And let's go ahead and choose a service window. So we're going to go out to see Sal anytime between 11 and 2, right? And then by default, we're set to all available resources here, right? Because we don't want to overbook ourselves. But I'm going to go ahead and select all resources because I want to see myself. And you see how Evan here is scheduled somewhere else and it shows it. Very cool. I'm going to go ahead and select myself here. And then in the bottom left corner, excuse me, right corner, you can also notify your client. This just sends them an email saying, hey, LB is going to be out there anytime between 11 and 2 on this service call. All right, let's just go ahead and do that. And I'm going to schedule it. And that's it as far as scheduling the service call. Super easy. And then before we head back to the field user view, let's quickly take a look at my schedule. Okay, so on both the projects and service schedules, I can show both types of events to see everything in one place. Just make sure that you have your completed events turned on, and same thing with project events. On the project schedule, this is going to say service events. All right, you'll recognize the difference because the service calls will always have a wrench to the left of it, right? And then you guys can also schedule service calls straight from the schedule right here. Just select a day and just fill out your details. And we are currently working on calendar integrations, right? So that's also on the roadmap. Okay, so let's switch back to our field user view again. Up in the top right corner, let's make the switch. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and find that service call. Okay, so we made it on site. Let's go ahead and clock in, and we're going to view the details. All right, so we want our techs to document what they discovered in the field, what they did to address it, and what's still needed. And then up in the top right corner, there's this little icon for internal notes. I'm going to click here. Let's add our new notes. And maybe Sal was a bit fussy. All right, you guys can also mention other teammates here. And again, guys, this is internal, so this is not going to show up on the invoice details for your client, right? But another good way to collaborate with your team when you're on site, because Braden's going to get an email notification and a notification in the software right away. All right, so let's go ahead and log the issue found. And I have an example here. So let's just say that the HDMI extender has failed. All right, we're going to go ahead and replace it. That's going to be the action taken. And any next steps, let's just say Sal's son mentioned something about updating or upgrading his TV in his bedroom. Right, so we're going to have sales send a quote later. Okay, so we logged the issue found, actions taken, and any next steps. Here's that same checklist. We looked for the physical damage, we checked all the connections, we determined that it is the HDMI extender, and then we're going to do some testing after we replace it. Okay, so here we have the options to repair, replace, or add any products. Again, we're going to go ahead and just replace it. So let's search for that product. I'm going to use this binary one. So we're going to search for the original one first, right? The one that's not working. And just as another note, guys, we're searching the catalog and not the DTools library. Today, we don't give your field users access to the entire database of products, just what you guys are using. All right, so here's the original one, and then here's our replacement. We're just going to search for the same one. All right, and if I didn't have this part on my truck, I could go ahead and request the products from the bottom left, and that's just gonna update the service call status to awaiting parts, right? So the office knows that they need to go ahead and help me out here. But instead, we're just gonna go ahead and add this product. Okay, here's the original, and then here's the replacement. And let's continue. Do we want to add more products? Nope, I think we're good. Let's go ahead and continue to the work summary. Right, so this is my work summary as a technician. I can see that I replaced one product. Again, here's the issue found, actions taken, and next steps. Marked off my checklist. And then here we have our total hours worked and then our total labor hours. Right, so think of these two bars as actual time versus billable time. If I click on my total hours worked, this is showing me how long I was clocked in, right? And clocked out, the actual time. But it doesn't matter that we were here for literally 2 minutes. I want to go ahead and bill for the hour, right? We're still charging for that standard service labor rate. So I'm going to go ahead and add that here. Right, and we're going to charge for the hour. Okay. And your technicians don't have to do this at this time, guys. You guys are more than welcome to bypass this stage or have them bypass this stage and then just do it back in the office and then send your invoice. But they also have the option to here. All right, so again, actual versus billable. And then here we have our drive time. Let's just say it took us maybe 20 minutes to get there. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and finish this. Let's clock out. Yep, let's just go ahead and clock out. Cool, and finish. Are we finished? Yep, let's complete it. So then this work summary is for the client, right? So maybe they're on site with you guys, maybe they're at the home and you want them to go ahead and accept and sign. Sal could go ahead and give us his signature. Here are his details. right? The product and labor amounts. And sure, let's just go ahead and accept and sign on sales. Oops. You know what? Skip that. We're just going to skip it. All right. And let's finish this. Sweet. So let's go back to our office user view, top right, and we're going to make the switch. And let's find that service call. And it's right here at the very top, and we can see that we're ready to get the payment. So we're going to drill back into that service call. Okay, here are my details again. I can see that LB checked off her checklist. But let's take a look at the work summary to see what she really did. Right? Here's the issue found, actions taken, and next steps. And then if my technician forgot to add some details, I can click here into this blank space and add any additional information. All right, and if I keep scrolling, I'll see my labor and product totals here, and then my actual time entry, right? And then here's the time that we're actually billing for. If I click this red hyperlink, it'll show me my standard service here. And if I keep scrolling, I'll also see my products listed below. Right, so this is that product that we replaced. All right, next to the visit tab, we have our internal notes, right? That note that I left for Braden. We can also track our service history here and any files or images that we uploaded. Okay, and then the last step is to create the invoice. So up in the top right corner, there's this green button here. Right, I do want to create it in QuickBooks at the same time. And I also have my DTools payments turned on. So I'm going to send them this invoice and they can pay directly through the software, right? Or directly through that message. And let's go ahead and create this. Let's, don't need to view that now. Let's go ahead and close this. Right, and so this is client facing, guys. Well, actually, let me put it in present mode up in the top right. All right, so once I share this with my client, they'll see their service call details here. Again, the part that we replaced and their labor. And then here's their total at the very bottom. And they can go ahead and just submit the payment. Right, Sal's going to proceed after he signs. And then pop in his credit card information or his bank information to pay through that payment request, right, or invoice. All right, guys. So just to recap, scheduling tasks for projects and service calls is going to keep your team organized, improve your customer experience, and support better reporting and insights, right? Time is money, so we want to complete more jobs in less time with less problems.